Hello viewers, welcome to The Impact. On this edition, we will discuss the innovative approaches at the University of the Gambia. As we know, schools and universities across the country were compelled to shut down following the announcement of the president on the 17th March that all public gatherings are banned with a view to curb the incidence of coronavirus. This was the very day Gambia confirmed first case of the COVID-19. This move appears to set University of the Gambia back to about 2 decades, but hopes are all not lost with the availability of a unit in digital campus, both in the Brickham and the Canifing campuses. There are arrangements on the side of lecturers to mitigate the loss in contact hours with the introduction of online teaching and learning process. Joining me now is Dr. Ismaila Cisse, who is a political science lecturer at the University of the Gambia, who has taken one step into this initiative. Dr. Cisse, welcome to The Impact.
Good afternoon, thank you.
So, knowing that universities are now shut and the University of the Gambia is no exception, where has this taken the university?
Well, thank you very much. I think I would not want to restrict this discussion to the university alone. Obviously, one of the strategies that was applied by the government to contain COVID-19 was social distancing. And one of the measures taken was to have a total lockdown of schools, primary, senior, secondary schools, nursery schools, even higher education institutions. So the UTG obviously is part of the higher education fraternity. Currently, they are working on something. I think that they will obviously come out. We'll have a press conference. The Ministry of Higher Education, university, and also other stakeholders are taking the lead in this. They'll come out very soon to really tell Gambians exactly the modalities that are put in place to ensure that the 2 or 3 months that students will be staying at home is not lost.
So when you say they are working on something, who is this supposed to mean? Because we know the shutdown of lectures has been for about 20 days now.
Yes, obviously you have to understand that the COVID-19 was an unexpected happening, causing enormous disruptions in our social life, our political life, and our economic life. It's taken the world by surprise. It's like a tsunami. Nobody was preparing for this because nobody was anticipating this. So obviously higher education is one of the sectors that were affected, just like the economic sector got affected. And with far-reaching consequences, you have to understand that the lockdown measures taken by the government or by any government across the globe, you have to understand that over 90% of students across the globe are affected by the lockdown, because most schools in the globe are on a lockdown currently to contain the COVID-19 from spreading. Now, these are far-reaching implications, with profound consequences and long-lasting consequences for students. So it's not only the UTG, but also students at every level of the education strata. So it's something that we've seen the basic education also taking measures in making sure that they provide class time through TV. Through the TV medium and so on and so forth. So it's not only UTG, but I can tell you that this are serious consequences not only for UTG but also other education institutions.
Yes,
but also not only for higher education,
UTG,
but also for economy and so on and so
the
forth.
announcement, the banning of public gatherings was immediately responded by schools from the lower basic to the higher education. So we know that even the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education came up with an alternative idea to teach through mass media. So, but the university has not been heard of. This is what makes the highest tertiary institution a little bit important. So maybe something was cooking on the ground. Could you discuss on that?
Yeah, but you have to understand that university is not the only higher education institution. We have GTTI, we have Gambia College, we have MDI, we have the University of Gambia. These are the 4 main public higher education institutions. So anything that has to be done within the context of the broader higher education subsector and not only focusing on UTG. What I can tell you is that I don't want to tell you details because I'll be preempting what will be said in the coming days in terms of the strategies put in place. What I can tell you is that plans are afoot. We know how serious this is, and we've been very proactive and also very active. Institutions have been set to make sure that we look at these things and come up with a proper strategy that can ensure that students who are going to stay away from university classrooms in the next 2 or 3 months will not be lost time for them. So very soon, obviously, the committee response will come out to explain those strategies to the Gambian public.
Yeah, we know that the closure of school, at all levels, into generalized, sent students back home, and then people who live from far distances have to leave the various learning institutions to take a break and then listen to education, managers and teachers, lecturers. So do you think the response mechanism across the country has been that swift on the side of education managers?
I think yes. In looking at it again, looking at the context, like I told you, the Gambia was not prepared for this. We are not even prepared to launch online learning processes in this country. But like I said, sometimes innovations are born out of crisis. This crisis will provide us an opportunity for us to come up with innovative ideas so that we can be able to be ready and prepare ourselves for future occurrences. Like I said, nobody was prepared for this. Nobody anticipated this. We are not ready to launch this. But I think if we are able to do this within a couple of weeks, I think that should be very commendable, considering the fact that this is not something that was part of our overall higher education strategy, that is providing online service. We didn't have the platform. We didn't have the capacity. So, I mean, rolling it out within a couple of weeks, I think will be commendable. One thing that should be clear is that we cannot expect to have a perfect system, considering the context within which this whole thing is happening and the rate at which we want to make sure that the time that is that students are going to be at home is not really wasted.
Yeah, when you say the country was not prepared for this, but is that definitely an expected description of an entire country with its academics all over, with that kind of repeatable standing to have almost a month without taking a very clear move as to how to mitigate the losses in contact hours?
You have to understand that the higher education sector is one of the most important subsectors in the country. However, in the past governments, past couple of years, or the past governments did not do two things. That is, one, to reform the higher education sector, and two, to invest in processes. And we didn't have that because the higher education sector was abandoned by the past previous government. They did not invest massively in it. So obviously, we are going to find ways, we are going to come up with strategies that can make it happen. I can promise it will not be lost. It will not be lost because we still have, we've lost, 21 days, which is a lot in the higher education calendar. 21 days is a lot. We've missed a lot. But again, I think we can make up for lost time because you remember that we have summer class, we have the summer break, which takes about 2.5 months. If we can be able to shorten the summer break and add it into the main calendar, I think we'll be able to make up for lost time, of course.
Just to give a bit of idea, when you to prepare for such emergencies, did this require a lot of spending? How costly would it have been to get Gambia prepared for such eventualities?
Obviously, what happens is that these spendings are not done in a short period. You do this over a longer term, preparing for pandemics. That is why I was surprised when I realized that the Gambia did not have any pandemic response mechanism in place, even though we knew that future threats to our existence would be things like pandemics and biological biological attacks and so on and so forth, and not attacks by missiles from Senegal or from the Soviet or from Russia or from anywhere else. So obviously we are not prepared for this as a country, and most countries are not even prepared in sub-Saharan Africa, even in the developing world. You have to understand that if you look at the countries that are faring well, the Singapores, the South Koreas that are doing well, the Sweden, these are countries that are prepared for this. They have the technology in place, they have the infrastructure, they have the human capacity and the human resources, and they have also the financial resources. The Gambia is one of those countries that don't have the financial resources. We haven't invested in our healthcare sector for a very long time. But when I say investment, I mean massive investment. We haven't invested in the education sector for a very long time. If I say investment, I mean massive investment. We did not upgrade both the software of our education sector and our health sector, and also the hardware of our education and health sectors, obviously. So this is all where we found ourselves in an uncharted territory, and we are trying to scramble and find, come up with measures as soon as possible to ensure that time is not lost, but also thinking ahead, knowing that there is an opportunity for the Gambia to really come up again from this really strong, and then make sure that we come up with measures that can make us learn lessons from this whole COVID-19 thing. One of the lessons is that we cannot continue to find ourselves in vulnerable situations, making ourselves as vulnerable as this, whereby whenever global events occur, we are left to the mercy of the Western world to come to our aid. We need to be able to build a country that can be strong enough, resilient enough to face such kind of calamities as they occur. But also, what other lessons can we learn? Invest in education, invest in the health sector. These are two primary sectors that we must invest in, as they are the only ones that can help us fight against COVID-19 and such calamities.
So the digital campus in the Brikama campus of the University of the Gambia was such that it's an indication of preparedness, because it was installed in such a way that it can facilitate distance learning, and this has been there for ages. What happened to initiatives like that? What is their role in such a situation?
Digital Campus was a funded project, but again, like I said, investment was lacking. We did not invest to upgrade it. You have to understand that this Digital Campus was set up years back. And, with technology is not something that is stagnant. It develops, it is evolving on a daily basis, in fact, on a minute basis. So obviously, Digital Campus there was no heavy investment in it to sustain it. Even though it's good, but I don't think it can provide us with the it's more of a small scale facility, whereby you can do classes, interactive classes with a few numbers. But having 5,000 students at UTG, providing 800 different courses, transferring that online, that's a large scale activity that the digital campus obviously cannot be able to take care of.
We know the University of this Gambia, their students are talking about coming back to school through the online method, and you, Dr. Cisse, is being mentioned as one of the architects, or the ones ready to implement these classes. How is this going on?
Yeah, of course it's going well. I'm part of the task force that was set up to coming up with a proper strategy to implement this. We've tested the system. We know it is possible. It can happen. See, the technology is there, obviously, to make it happen. But you have to understand that societies have to also adapt to technologies, which is called the social shaping of ICT, is how societies adapt to technologies. And I think, like I said, this is the first time we are going to roll this out. It's not going to be a perfect system, like I said. You cannot create a perfect system in such a very short time. But obviously, our intention is to ensure that students that are staying at home because of the lockdown, to ensure social distancing to contain COVID-19, that the time they are going to stay at home is not wasted. So I'm part of the task force which is set up, working with other stakeholders within the whole higher education industry, with the Ministry of Higher Education obviously taking the lead. Obviously, plans are afoot. We can assure the students that everything will be okay. We'll roll it out as soon as possible, and students will also have classes online. The higher education, obviously, together with university and other stakeholders, will come out in the coming days to come up with the proper comprehensive strategy, and also other information that the general public might require to understand what mechanisms are in place for us to do online classes. So
meanwhile, classes are also reportedly going through WhatsApp messages, WhatsApp groups with the students, and that is offered by the university lecturers. How effective is that measure also?
As far as university is concerned, we haven't started our online classes yet. I mean, those are maybe individual lecturers who are very proactive and wants to start doing something, start engaging their students while we wait for the proper implementation of this whole project. Officially, at the level of the ministry, at the level of the University of the Gambia, we haven't started yet. That is why I said, before we start, obviously, with the right authorities come out to discuss and tell the Gambian population exactly what's happening. For now, some individual lecturers like myself, we've started using Zoom. We've started using, obviously, WhatsApp chat groups to keep students engaged, so that time is not wasted. But these are unofficial, informal methods whereby we do it, but this is not really occasioned by the UTG.
Yeah, we have the University Digital Campus, the School of Journalism and Digital Campus. So the word digital there implies that the Gambia University is somehow prepared. At the Kanifing level, how is this digital campus going to roll this out for students and lecturers to continue teaching and learning?
Now, what we have at the University of the Gambia is the School of Journalism and Digital Media. That is different from the digital campus we have in Brikama. So digital media obviously has to do with learning in terms of digital media and so on and so forth. So that is different from exactly when we are trying to roll out online classes. I can tell you that we have a very strong IT department at the university, and they've been at the forefront helping us develop the program. We are the kind of platform, develop this platform that we are going to use, and that a lot of progress has been made. We've gone a long way. And in fact, the student body is also part of the task force. The task force is composed of different stakeholders within the university. The student body, myself as the director of student affairs, we have the technical team, we have some deans, the vice chancellor himself. So a lot of work has been going. We're meeting regularly using online platforms to plan for this thing. So obviously, like I said, very soon information will come out giving you a comprehensive rundown of the whole project. But again, the School of Journalism and Digital Media also are going to, some of the classes there will also be taken online. And also where GTT has also been tasked to go and design their own platform and program, how they want to also do online classes, and also other higher education institutions. So obviously progress has been made in that front.
Yeah, this is interesting, and knowing that once this initiative is launched to kickstart the online teaching and learning, this will require a lot of internet and connectivity. What will be the role of GSM operators in the Gambia, especially GAMSA, which is a national GSM? Have you thought
obviously,
of that? Yeah.
Like I said, I don't. Yes, obviously, like I said, those negotiations are on. I don't want to preempt, obviously, the outcome of those negotiations, but I can assure you that those negotiations are on. Like I said, when the ministry comes out, and also together with the other stakeholders to give the information, they'll discuss those things. But what I can tell you is that negotiations are with all the GSM operators, and they are ready to collaborate with the higher education sector to ensure that this project becomes a reality.
Yeah, could you just give a hint as to how would every student get connected once you are back to classes, especially the online version? I mean, how would every student be connected? You're talking about thousands of students.
Not the how, but what I can tell you is that it's going to happen. We are working on it, and we know it's going to happen. I personally tested the online platforms that we are going to use. I did test runs in 2 different classes, the IR class and the politics class. It went well. And we are working on making sure that every student who's registered gets access to the internet they need to join the online classes. So that one I can assure you. Now,
yeah, what sort of platform? Yes, again, just you describe what sort of platform will this be. We know there are a lot of platforms.
Obviously, we are going to use the Google Classroom, obviously, which is very easy to use and has been tried and tested by many countries and many universities. So obviously, and that is an easy platform to use, and also the Google Meeting Place. So these are very interactive platforms that have been created for online class purposes. So now, once the negotiations are done with the GSM operators, and once every information is gathered, once everything is set, we'll come out and give you, the proper information as to how the smaller details. For now, what I can assure you,
we know the University of the Gambia. The University of the Gambia is a leader as far as higher education is talked about. So, looking at the system that is likely coming in place, so how will this what will this define as to the skills and expertise of engineers that are made by the university, especially in the School of Engineering, the schools of information technology? Where would this find our practitioners in that aspect?
In fact, they are taking the lead. You have to understand that most of the guys working at our IT department are UTG graduates. So they are taking the lead in this. They are working very hard to ensure that this thing becomes a reality. They've been working with us very closely in the past couple of weeks, helping us design the framework for this program. So obviously, they are taking the lead. And I can assure you, and I can assure the general public and the student body, that once the whole thing is rolled out and once it's implemented, I think everybody will know that we've been doing a lot of hard work to make sure this happens, and that it's going to be a very successful program.
Yeah, you express hope that, you know, the university can always catch up and make up the lost time, but knowing the situation, the real situation on the ground, university, if it's supposed to start this week, it takes extra 1 or 2 weeks. So how, in your idea, would the university ever prevent a repetition of the entire academic year in this situation of coronavirus?
The academic year will not be lost. The semester even will not be lost, let alone an academic year. We will roll out the online classes very soon. Students will have their classes, and everything will be fine. I mean, we have to adapt to circumstances. These are unusual circumstances. These are circumstances that nobody foresaw. These are desperate circumstances. Therefore, we need desperate measures, and we are working on those measures to ensure that we don't have what they call a whole semester that is gone lost. We are not going to allow that to happen. So we've really worked fast and hard in very difficult conditions to make sure this thing happens. And we're at the final stages now. Very soon, perhaps in a couple, not very long. I don't want to tell you when, because I don't want to give students the hope and think. I don't want to give a specific date and a specific moment. But very soon, very, very soon, we'll go online, and students will have their online classes, and the semester will not be lost. And everybody will be happy, of course.
Yeah, Doctor, I'm saying this respectfully, that the university has some lecturers who are not computer friendly. They hardly use computer. And what is the assurance that, you know, lecturers, or talk less of students, will definitely embrace the graduation to information or IT technology on this short time?
Well, I'm not aware of any lecturer at UTG who's not computer friendly. UTG is a university. It's one of the highest education institutions in the country. I wouldn't even assume that UTG would have a lecturer who cannot use computers. Then in this day and age, this is the 21st century, anybody who graduates UTG, the minimum requirement for you to teach at UTG is a master's degree. And I wouldn't imagine anybody with a master's degree who is not computer friendly in this day and age. So I'm pretty sure that our staff are ready, especially our academic staff, to adapt these technologies for teaching purposes. I can assure you that.
Yeah, because if you look at the transcript department, we interact with a lot of your students who will say that it takes them ages before they get their transcripts ready. So this indicates that the use of technology is a challenge at the university. Now the question is, the students, yes. The students are many, and how will you get them all on board, especially within the given short period of time? This is emergency situation we're talking about.
But the transcript department, I mean, students getting delay in getting their transcripts can be caused by other factors, apart from students' lack of computer proficiency, obviously. There are many factors that can lead to that. And you have to understand, all the transcript department is a very small department, staffed by about 2 or 3 people max. So that's serving up a population of 5,000 students. That's a different thing than having the whole full academic force running courses online, using technologies that are easy to user-friendly, mounting 800 courses with about 200 to 300 academic staff. That's a whole different ball game. So for me, I wouldn't use the experience of students at the transcripts office as a yardstick to try to predetermine what will happen when we want to do this online lectures. Obviously, like I said, we have the capacity, we are ready, and we are good to go. And I'm pretty much sure. We are not promising a perfect system, to be honest, because these things takes time to, even countries with the perfect system, it takes time to build with massive investments. We are doing this out of necessity, because of, that's why I said sometimes crisis breeds opportunities, and we see this as an opportunity not only to, in the short term, provide online classes for our students, but also in the long term, build and strengthen our online classes capacity for
Dr.
us to be providing online
let's
classes
just
as well.
talk about the feeder to the university. That the immediate feeder is the senior secondary school that supplies students to the University of the Gambia. So now we're seeing the university about to take a move. Hopefully it will continue, but what will happen if the senior secondary school, that is the basic education, is not able to cope up, because that is an entirely different setup? Would there be likely a hiatus in the admission in the next academic year or semester, immediate semester next?
Not necessarily. I think, like I said, we have to adapt to changing circumstances. If you look at the UK today, they've cancelled all examinations. Even the GCS is cancelled. So what they are going to do is calculated assessment. So you have to see circumstances. Sometimes you need to adapt. You need to adapt to them. We will understand that this was a crisis that had far-reaching implications for every sector, especially within the education sector, at every level, from basic to higher education. So obviously, when we are going to go into the next semester, when we are going to admit students in next semester, we should also consider most of these problems and make sure that we adapt and come up with measures that are going to ensure that nobody's left behind and nobody's disadvantaged because of the crisis, obviously.
So where do you think the blockage may happen between nursery school to university? Do you expect everybody, 100% could go together on this initiative that you're talking about? Technology, if the university can do it, senior school can do it, maybe junior school can even do it, but how about the primary and nursery? And once there is a system or a rhythm or a stream that is stopped per year, or just 1 month, it might affect the continuity. Are you thinking like that too?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, that takes a concerted effort of experts within the basic and higher education sectors to come up with a comprehensive strategy. Look at all the scenarios that can emerge from the crisis. But for now, I don't think we should panic. I don't see any serious issues with this. At the basic education level, I'm aware that they are teaching classes through TV and radio, despite all its weaknesses. At least they are doing something. Now, what the problem that will emerge is assessment. How will you assess students? We have to understand that those living in the urban areas will have more access to TV than those living in the rural areas. If you do the assessment and you realize that those in the urban areas tend to do far more better than those in the rural, then there is some problem there, which means the process was not very equitable. So obviously, but we should find ways to make sure that nobody is disadvantaged. And now our focus should be the disadvantaged people, because crisis normally affects more the disadvantaged people than the advantaged people. Even though it affects advantaged people, but it affects more disadvantaged people. I think the government should come up with a comprehensive strategy to ensure that we look at this whole strata of the education sector from nursery to higher education to ensure that no child is left behind.
Okay, that was Dr. Cissé, senior lecturer at the University of the Gambia, who was talking to us on this interview as to the level of progress and the initiatives that are coming up to cope the COVID-19 vis-a-vis the closure of schools and university. On this impact, it was a pleasure being with you. My name is Ibrahim Prespa. Until another edition, we thank you for watching.
Lampi kan iwan kaspa o jibe kaspa o fila banta ko do fila ina kaspa o sanna
ko do bar suwa ko tale ko porto ro ngam Mamadou Kumandi ba hello Mamadou abijan dron ko taran du ko rim balal yende manan kaspa wala say ha banta hadi fentiji yo okay mabakuna abarka ba kayame
Maria
no.
Ite Mamadou batara no bantala banko kan nyadi le ka kaspa o kini te jang sai
ngodo fe malon ko balu ya ke do ko den ibe bantala banko kan dawoda ese kaspa o kino kana gambe jang ado abe tariyari nyami aba soni yari wala fana nyami munta min kela dorong wala ka log onto www.baluwo.com. Ye prepaid electricity sang min ka bonale electricity company solto min bale Gambia banko kanjang, Senegal, Mali, Nigeria and Sierra Leone.